Here's Ryan.
I'm Ryan again. I'm an alcoholic. Our next speaker, it's quite an honor and a privilege to be here tonight, and I'm really grateful he is here. I know Bernie for about not even quite a year now. Interesting story though. Last year, my wife and I were kind of on a cross-country journey to move her out there to take a new job, and hitting meetings all along the way. And we finally get to the destination, which is, Scottsdale, Arizona. And we both were kind of freaking out, right? Like, we're moving across the country. We got the place here. We got the place here in Nebraska. What's going on? Is this okay? Is it not? Whatever. But anyway, we're like, well, we need to make sure and go to a meeting first thing tomorrow morning. So we went down to the park and scoped out where this meeting is supposed to be. And it's like, it's a meeting in this park. And it's called BYOC, the Bring Your Own Chair group at Rotary Park, Scottsdale, Arizona. And of course, Stacy and I, we're bring your own chair. I wonder if we're supposed to bring a chair. So we don't bring a chair. Just walk up to this group in the park. Everybody has chairs. We didn't even think about that. And of course, Bernie was one of the first guys to stand up and say, well, what the hell's wrong with you guys? It's right in the title. It says, BYO, bring your own damn chair. How much, but anyway, it was funny and it was nice. And it just, immediately we felt welcomed and loved in that group, which is one of the coolest things about AA. No matter where you go, you're accepted. And Bernie was one of those people for us. And since then, my dear sponsor, Jack C., who many of you know, recently passed away. Bernie is now my new sponsor. He flew in from Scottsdale, Arizona just the other day. We picked him up. We've been smoking cigars and having a good time. So anyway, without further ado, Bernie R. from Scottsdale, Arizona.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Bernie. I'm an alcoholic. And I heard a couple of rumors earlier today, especially from the women. I was quite surprised. So let me just make clear, I'm not pregnant. I'm built for comfort, not for speed. So that's why it took me so long to walk there. I'm not here for hiking, right? I'm here to speak in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you so much, Ryan, for asking me to come here, and thank you so much for the welcome. Last night we went to a meeting, and I met a couple of you guys, and we had such a funny dinner. We were laughing, and this is what AA is all about for me, right? It is so important to find your tribe and plug in, and it doesn't matter where I go in the world. There is a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am immediately among people that understand what's wrong with me, whether you like it or not. So my sobriety date is 7th of November 2006. I got sober in Shanghai in China, and that sounds very exciting, but they have alcoholics too, and a lot of them actually. And I have a sponsor. He knows that he's my sponsor, and I sponsor guys. And this is one of the biggest honors that I have, that people ask me to sponsor them, because I know what I really lacked when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous a couple of 24 hours ago is, my God, I can't trust these guys. I have absolutely no trust. And the reason was not that I can't trust you. The truth was I couldn't trust myself. Right? How many times, thousands of times, did I say, I'm going to drink today, Bernie? And then a couple of hours later, what did I do? I started drinking. So I lost all the trust in myself, right? But let me back up a little bit. I'm originally, obviously, as you can hear, from east of Oklahoma. And it's called Germany. And actually, that's a quite funny story. A couple of years ago, I was asked to speak on the 25th anniversary in a meeting in Oklahoma. And there was this lady who spoke just before me. By the way, Brett, excellent job. I really enjoyed your share. And so she started talking. My wife sits there with me, and she starts talking. And I lean over to my wife, and I said, I can't understand the damn word that woman is saying. So I hope you can understand me, because, I know I sometimes get carried away a little bit. So I started drinking let me back off. I, got the official recognition that something is different when I would take a drink. So I'm maybe 8 or 9 years old. My dad drinks a beer. I have a little sip, and I liked the, attention and all that kind of stuff. And I liked all this action that was surrounding on it. Everybody, all the men in my family are dead through alcoholism. I have one younger half brother. I don't know if he's an alcoholic, but he probably should qualify for a first sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, but that's up to him. My father died when I was about 12 years old, drank himself to death. My uncles drank themselves to death. But it all looked good. We were the perfect family. Right? Because we have the capability of being so pretentious. And when you would look at us and my family, you think, my God, everything there must be the perfect life. And it's not true, right? If you pull back the 4 or 5 layers of pretentiousness that we were able as a family to put on, you saw the chaos. And I tell you, if you see your dad shooting at your mother, it kind of sits with you a little bit, right? And or see my mother being dragged by her hair around the room, right? And this violence that I encountered as a young kid was probably the start of that soul sickness that I have. But that I knew that something is not right, but I didn't know what to do about it. Right? I just could not connect the dots. Right? On one hand, we are so hyper pretentious that everything is great, everything is wonderful, and then you have the other side to it. Right? And so it's like the other thing is your parents tell you, don't lie. And then 2 minutes later, I hear my father lie on the phone very obviously about something. So I thought, okay, if you get away with it. So there was a lot of contradiction all the time. And I kind of feel like I just learned it's okay, right? To just bullshit your way through life and see how that works, right? And, then I grew up on a city very similar in Germany, like this size of this town, and we moved to the big city of Hamburg, and I did a lot of martial arts, judo and kickboxing, and I was pretty good at it. And it's been 14, 15 years old. I started hanging out with the wrong people, hanging out at night, started drinking, and oh my God, I became a bouncer. I was 16 years old. You're not allowed to be in any nightclubs in Germany. But because I was big and I was a little bully, they let me get away with it. And when you're a bouncer in Hamburg in Germany, which is a big port for drugs, and nightlife is very famous, we have one of the biggest red light districts in the world there, everything is easily accessible. And so I really started drinking just to fit in, start learning being part of the team. And it was very quick that I realized that I have a problem with alcohol. But, I could still kind of manage it in the beginning, right? Because I just didn't have the money. And I joined the military. I was in the Navy, in the Merchant Navy, and then in the military. And, I'm one of these guys that volunteers for everything. And I loved the military, right? Because it gave me so much, it was just, everything was organized for me, right? They told me what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and I felt safe for the first time in my life. I never encountered that with my family because everybody was constantly trying to manipulate, putting guilt and shame on you, and whatever you did was not right or wrong, and it was just very chaotic in my mind. And there I felt safe for the first time in my life. When I left the forces, it's not like here, in Germany, when you are in the military and you are persona non grata. And I remember many years I was flying with my wife. We came over to the States, and we flew from Los Angeles to St. Louis. I smoked too much cigars, guy. I can't really breathe here. Give me a second. We flew from Los Angeles to St. Louis and even Southwest, and the stewardess said, we like to thank the gentleman in row 18A for his service. And I thought, what's that? And I looked up, and there's sitting this guy in this uniform. I never encountered any like this. It's just not the way that Germans look at the military, even still today. And so if you've been in the forces, I thank you for your service, even though I'm not an American citizen yet. But I know what you've been up to. I left the forces, and I already had a little issue with alcohol, but I never drank on mission. I was never, when I was at sea. I was also at sea for a while, and I trained officer cadets in seamanship in my last assignment, and so we were not allowed to drink. At least, no, that's not true. We were allowed 3 beers per day, German. By the way, we called it beer muscle. Did I mention that? And I didn't want to drink 3 beers. Who in the hell wants to drink 3 beers? Waste of time and space and no. So I didn't drink, but as soon as we called the port, I went totally crazy. And I can tell endless stories about that. Look at my hands and you can probably figure out what happened. But it's it was just normal, right? And I came back to Germany, and we had the opportunity to make my apprenticeship, and even at the job it was normal to drink. At lunch in those days, I'm 57 years old, so we had boozy lunches at the time. It's probably not allowed anymore now in Germany, but at that time it was okay. I did a lot of cocaine too, but cocaine helped me to drink more. And so, I made my apprenticeship. I drank myself through it. It was probably, I can't remember now, I think it was about 22 or 23 years old. I went to my first meeting to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought, nah, I'm okay. I needed another 18 years till I was 40 years old, that I was finally so broken emotionally, mentally, and morally that I rolled into my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job allowed me to travel around the world. I've been in many, many different countries. I lived in many different countries. And it was always the same thing. I got there, I sorted the job out. I get it all done. Then I got bored. I started to look around where to drink. And I started drinking, and before the shit started hitting the fan, another job came up, another thing for me, another job to take care of in another country. I'm in international transportation, so that is, I always got away with it for way too long. Some people call it now, pulling a geographical, so it really doesn't matter if you move from Omaha to Scottsdale, right? Or if you move from Rio de Janeiro to Shanghai. It's the same thing, right? Alcohol was always there and always brought me down to my knees. So, finally I ended up in Shanghai, in China, and and I remember on that 6th of November, I'm sitting in my house. By the way, I was 4 weeks earlier. I was in intensive care for a week. They thought I'm not going to make it, and the doctor came up to me after this 1 week, and I thought by myself, being a good alcoholic, I just needed that reset. You know what I mean? And you don't end up, Anyway, so I'm checking out of the hospital, and it was quite expensive actually. And the doctor comes up to me and he says, Bernie, it was a doctor from New York, and he ran a clinic here in the US, and he said, I know that a lot of people found help in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I look at him and I say, I'm not that bad. I was just in intensive care for a week. Not for a stomach bug, because I was off a bender for 8 weeks on a bender. I came off of, right? So I was on a very strict regimen of about 2 bottles of vodka at least a day. I didn't sleep. I passed out several times a day. I was in a disgusting physical and mental state of mind. And then finally, the day before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous to my first meeting, I really realized something important, right? I was drinking at home alone then, and because I told myself, I don't want to have anything to do with anybody anymore. But the truth was that nobody wanted to have anything to do with me anymore. Right, so I had the telephone number of Alcoholics Anonymous in my desk for quite some time, for about 1.5 years. Right, and so I finally call, and this guy's name is Jeff C. He is back in the States now, and he still was one of my main guys in AA who taught me quite a lot about this disease. And he says to me, Bernie, I understand. Let me just get somebody that can speak your mother language to talk to you. Click. You gotta be shitting me. Do you know how heavy that phone was? Just to make that phone call. And then he like kind of doesn't want to have anything to do with me. You know, I'm selfish and self-centered in the extreme. Right? And of course, 2 minutes later, the phone rings. And my friend, very good friend now, Marcus, calls. And he's from Bavaria. I'm from northern Germany. And he said to me something that saved my life, really. I really blame it all on him. Because he said to me, you know, when I called, I was already about 3/4 of a bottle of scotch into the day. It was 10:30 in the morning. And so he asked me, how much have you had to drink? And I said, a little bit. And we're kind of honest. And he says, you know, can you do me a favor, Bernie? Do you think you can dim it down a little bit? Maybe just drink beer and then see if you can make it to that meeting tonight. There's one at 6 o'clock in the St. Peter's Church in Shanghai, downtown, and I meet you there. If he would have said to me, you got to stop right away, right now, I couldn't. I was half a bottle of scotch in the game. Once I start, I cannot stop. Right? But I was able to dim it down, so he saved my life. Right? He really said, you know, just take it easy, come to the meeting. And I showed up at the meeting, and I'm, of course, drunk. And that was the 6th of November in 2006. It was a Monday. You can imagine what that weekend was like, huh? And so I walk in, and I remember I have a big bottle of beer outside the meeting, you know, I just in case, right? And so this Jeff C. guy is there, and he walks up to me and says, hi, Bernie. And I just say, I'm Jeff, and I wanted to let you know you have a disease. The disease is alcoholism, and it's not your fault. And I thought, wow. That kind of sat with me for a second there. So then I asked him, of course, the most important question for any alcoholic, how long have you been without a drink? He said, 12 years. I said, yeah, right. Who in his right mind is sober for 12 years? Right? When you knew, I mean, I saw a lot of old-timers here today on the countdown. That's awesome. Right? It's just for somebody that drinks like we do, and he's not in here. It's just inconceivable to think that somebody's sober for so long. I mean, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, neighbor's cat's birthday. I mean, there are just so many tragedies. Right? Many of us been through some serious tragedies, and you just don't drink. Absolutely amazing, right? So I didn't believe it with the 12 years, but there was this other guy in that meeting. His name was also Jeff, and I'm quite a competitive kind of guy, and he started sharing, and he said he is 3 months sober. And I thought, 3 months, if I really push it, I might be able to manage this. So, you know, I tried to stay sober. And this was one day at a time. At the time, we had 3 meetings a week in Shanghai. And they, of course, Jeff C. had to tell me the joke about, you got to do 90 meetings in 90 days. That confuses an alcoholic like mine. But what we did there, we were very close because most of us were expats there, and it was a very close crowd, and we were going out and we were meeting all the time for coffee and just hanging out together. Right? So the fellowship really became extremely important between meetings to me. I got 3 months sober, and I had to go on a business trip to Hong Kong, which was very difficult because I embezzled a lot of money. And I had to meet there some attorneys down there. And I remember I'm in the hotel in Hong Kong, and I think to myself, you know what, you should meet with your old friends. Right? All the people that I knew at the time, I used to live in Hong Kong too, they were all drinking like me. Right? And so the fight in my head, in my alter ego, you know, good and bad start fighting in my head. Say, let's go out and meet them. You don't have to drink. You know that's the biggest lie we can tell ourselves, right? There's just no way that I'm not going to drink if I hang with my old buddies that drink like me. And so, you know, I'm lying in this hotel, and I didn't know what to do, and I started praying. And I just knew the Serenity Prayer at the time. And I probably said it 100 times in a row, and finally I fell asleep. I was able to settle all the things that I had to settle, and I flew back to Shanghai, and I didn't drink. You know, and that was a really huge thing for me, right? I was really kind of proud of myself, and this is the right kind of pride in my opinion. There's a lot of false pride going around, but you know, that was great. So, you know, then I met my sponsor. He's still my sponsor. He lives in Charlotte. He comes to Scottsdale next Wednesday, and we spend some time together. And he's the kind of guy you think he's on a strict regimen of volume. You look at him, that guy doesn't move fast. He doesn't talk fast. He's like always very serene. And I didn't know what serenity was, right? And I had absolutely no idea. So, you know, I approached him and said, hey, Doug, would you be my sponsor? You know, I feel like I'm 3 months sober now and I'm hitting a wall. I don't seem to get out of this. You know, I don't know what to do next. And he said, have you worked the steps? Have you read the big book? A little bit, right? And okay, he said, all right, let's do this together. So he took me through the steps the first time. And I can tell you now, I just been through the steps with Stacy in another group in Scottsdale again. And it's so funny to see, you know, that if you go through the steps again and again and again, the big book changes. It's like, I would bet you $100 that that sentence wasn't in there last week. It's in there for 80 years, right? But my understanding, my willingness of understanding has grew so much that I want to know more about myself. You know, why is it that I'm so weird, that I'm so crazy in the head, that I, you know, tear everything apart if you're left to my own devices? So and I have to, you know, I get sober and I get a couple of years together, and you know, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me in Alcoholics Anonymous is that my higher power really put the right people in my path all the time. You know, my sponsor had to go back to the United States. His job was over there, and he retired. And you know how scared you are when something happened to your first sponsor, and it's really, you know, it's hard to trust somebody, and suddenly he's not there available for you all the time. And you know, and this guy walks in. His name was Andy Brady, and he passed away. He was 38 years sober. He's from Scotland, and I used to have a lot of business in Scotland, so I kind of understood what he was talking about. And you know, we became very, very close very quickly. That's kind of a funny story, because he walks into the first meeting when he arrived, and he says, does anybody live in Pudong? And somebody said, yeah, you got to talk to Bernie. Okay. Does anybody play golf? Yeah, you got to talk to Bernie. Does anybody know about Thai women? You definitely have to talk about Bernie. And you know, I said, who the hell is Bernie? Right? And then I walk in, and it's really a true story. And we become very close. And he is an AA Nazi, right? We talked about tough love earlier, and you know, he was the guy. I was a really angry dude for a really long time. And remember the first time my sponsor told me that he loves me, I almost headbutted him. I don't care. So he. You know, and we had endless discussions, and he showed me a different kind of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is really the trick, right? To stay so open-minded in this program that wherever you go, right, you can pick a nugget up in a meeting, right? And, you know, you look at Nebraska, right? You look at Arizona, right? But look at Germany. They have Alcoholics Anonymous. I've never been to a German-speaking meeting in my life, by the way. I got a German big book and I hated it. And I was asked to speak at a meeting in Germany when I was still living in Shanghai. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't have the vocabulary to talk about it in German, right? It's so absurd, but it's very different. But people stay sober, right? You can go to Singapore. You can go to New York, you can go to Los Angeles, to Montana, or you can go to Bangkok or Australia. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous is so big, so much bigger than me. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I have the ability to, when I travel a lot for business, and I have really the ability to plug in automatically wherever I am in Dallas, they have some great meeting in Houston. They have in Boston. I was in a little meeting that was awesome very recently. And every time I go, I get a new idea, right? And so for me still today, I have my home group, but I still go to a lot of other meetings. So let's talk about life, right? So, now I'm sober. And next big thing in AA, I expected my picture slides up right between Bill and Bob, kind of thing, you know what I mean? It was probably 6 minutes sober or something. And, I got in a couple of years. I met my wife in Alcoholics Anonymous. We got married. And, life is good. I get my shit back together. I start making money again. I pay off debts. And suddenly, with 8 years of sobriety, I lose everything. That's not my fault. One of my biggest customers went belly up. And I just got caught up in the back end on it. And I go from 100 to 0 in 3 months. That did not sit well with me. I'm not talking about my wife who lost her job at the same time. Right? And suddenly you sit there and, you don't know what we're going to do. We had a couple of savings. And so I tried to get back into my business. My wife started something new off. I tried to help as good as I can. And we moved from Shanghai to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And, then something happened that her father got very sick. During all this time, I'm still so full of fear suddenly again, because I don't know how to get back in the game. I probably applied for 200 jobs, and I had a couple of interviews, and nothing ever came out of it. And it was absolutely horrifying. It took really a couple of years. Her father got sick, so we had to sell whatever we had in Asia and move back to Arkansas. Right? And I'm not talking about any one of the nice big cities. We talk about to Fort Smith, Arkansas. That is smaller than this town. And, and it was one of the hardest things because now everything is suddenly new for me. My AA is gone. My routines are gone, and so I had to plug in. Right? And, again, I got angry with my higher power and God, right? Because, again, they said, the wrath of God. And I always felt like I had a short end of the stick anyway for many years. And, it took me quite some time to figure out what my higher power really is and how to get there. And I'll talk about this in a minute. So, again, God put somebody in my path. And his name was Dr. Bobby Bell. And, if you understand me a little bit and how much problems I have with God in the religious sense, I was just so angry with that dude for so long. And my wife will tell you, up to my 12th year in sobriety, I would really kind of still get a little upset. And so God puts Bobby in my life. Bobby is the head of the Methodist Church of Northwest Arkansas. And he plays golf. So I start hanging with this guy, and he opened up my world to, a little bit more the religious part of it, but also the spiritual part, because he was sober for a very long time. And I was willing to listen, and I learned incredible lessons, right? That a lot of the things that we look at spiritual is about us, all about the fellowship. It's all about the community that we create and that we are part of. We can't do it alone. I tried for 20 years to stop drinking. I couldn't do it alone. And that was absolutely unbelievable. And I didn't know why I couldn't find a job, and I did little jobs here and there and helping out, but not really for money. And I got more and more frustrated. So I've been on with my sponsor every day, and he always said to me, Bernie, I don't swear here, okay. He says, do you have food in the fridge? I say, yes. Do you have a roof over your head? Yes. Shut up, click. Love? I don't know about it, but I love this man today. I can really say so. Right, so my wife and I, helping out, getting everything back in the pipeline there, and her father has passed away, and we decided to move to Arizona after 16 years in Asia. I just don't do cold anymore. It's cold here, by the way. Not in this room, though. And, I still couldn't find a job. So my wife gets a little angry and upset because he worked. I tried to find jobs, and I played again endlessly, all sorts of jobs. They couldn't find anything. And she just said, get something. Get just anything. And my sponsor says, Bernie, just go get something. It doesn't matter. So I apply for a job at Home Depot. Me, Dr. Big Shot. Right? It was the most humbling experience I ever had. Right? And, and I said, and I started very quickly really enjoying it. Because I realized how disconnected I was going to a lot of AA meetings, but I was disconnected from the real world. And very quickly, Home Depot offered me full-time. They made me supervisor. They wanted me to go the management line. They become a key holder and assistant store manager and all these kind of things. And then suddenly this guy walks in. And he looks like, somebody that works on a building site, right? Dirty clothes, big boots. And he said, where are the buckets? I said, over there. He said, where's your accent from? I said, I'm from Germany originally. And he says, my father is from Germany. Yes. So we started talking. He said, so what are you doing here? I said, I'm coming from international transport and trade, and I couldn't find a job, and now I'm just doing it. He said, why don't you send me your resume? So I sent him my resume, and didn't hear anything. I said, another hot air balloon, a lot of talk, nothing behind it. And a couple of months later, he calls me up and said, hey, let's talk, right? And he tells me that what he wants to do, he was actually the boss, the owner of a building company, a developer, and he was very hands-on, right? And he said, I need somebody that does the sourcing in China for me, for building materials. So I started, unbelievable. So, very briefly after that, I started working for him, and suddenly my salary got up again, and my wife and I could move into a nicer place. Then COVID hit, and I said to him, everything came to a standstill down in Scottsdale. I said, here we go again. God is pulling the rug from underneath me. So I said, Mark, I think I cannot do this anymore because there's really nothing to do for me. Everything came to a standstill, and I'm so expensive. For my salary and my wages, so, I might just start looking for something else. And he said, hang on, Bernie, I have a friend who has a sourcing company that sources from Asia, and they're looking for somebody who can help with the logistics. You can't make that shit up. Right? And I had absolutely no idea. And suddenly I make more money than I did before, but I was thinking about going back to Home Depot and having peace of mind again. Right? And it is absolutely absurd. There's another funny story about Home Depot, right? And they talk about higher power stuff. So Home Depot offers me full time. And I love Home Depot, saved my life. And they said, Bernie, we can only give you full time if you have a car. I didn't have a car. But I said, I could take the bus and the bicycle in the morning. My wife needed a car. And so, I said, okay, great, happy, get full time. I'm going to be the opener, 5 o'clock. I'm an early bird anyway, Navy, once Navy, always Navy. I get up early in the morning. Perfect for me. I can leave at 2 o'clock, get some golf in the afternoon. You walk my dogs, absolutely wonderful. So I get home, call my wife. They said they offered me full time. Isn't that great? And I said, great, but I need a car. So I think I'm just going to lie and say, take the bike and take the bus there early in the morning and get to work. And 2 minutes later, I put my phone down. 2 minutes later, my sponsor calls me. He said, Bernie, do you need a car? I literally went through the apartment and was looking for listening devices. So his mother-in-law, he was 2,400 years old, still had this old banger, right? And she couldn't drive anymore. They put her up in a retirement home, and he said, you can have it. So I got my car. And one problem was it didn't have air conditioning in the summer in Scottsdale, right? So I bought one of these little fans that you plug into the cigarette lighter thingy. Doesn't work. Don't waste your money on that. Right? And, there's hundreds of these situations that just happened because I started again, right? I was so empty and so scared for so long. It took me always 4 years to get my feet back on the ground because I just, I was blaming everything on everybody. I couldn't take accountability. I couldn't take the next right step. I couldn't take the next action. And the action was just start doing something, right? And I suddenly got back into the game. So now I'm working for this other company. I'm doing really well. And then suddenly my phone rings and said, Bernie, this is Hardy. Are you in the United States? I said, yeah. He is my old agent in Hong Kong that I worked with for many, many years. He said, come on, man, we gotta meet up and talk about old times. Why don't you come to LA? I'm living in the States now too. And we have dinner next time you're out here. And I said, oh, okay. And I wasn't really thinking about anything. And a couple of weeks later, I'm in LA, visited a childhood friend. And we go out for dinner and we start talking about these old times. And he was, of course, wondering, why is he not drinking? And I never mentioned him till today that I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous. I just say I don't drink, period. I don't need any reasons, any justifications, I mean, I can honestly tell you that there's absolutely nobody in my family that thinks that I deserve a drink. My mother, my sister, stay away from it. So it doesn't really, it's of nobody's concern. Maybe I tell him one time, maybe I will not. But anyway, so I go there over on Sunday and we have breakfast before I drove back to Arizona, and he says, offers me a job. And, becomes a representative for a company in Asia, in the United States and Canada. And, how does this shit happen? I don't know. Right? It's just because I started getting my head out of my butt and started to apply for a job at the Home Depot. Probably any other way I would have started drinking again. Right, let me very quickly talk about, came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. What is that power? Right, and how do you get there? And then it took me quite some time to figure that out, because the only power greater than myself is love. And has nothing to do with hitting on the girl that's good looking in an AA meeting. Right? I'm talking about more kindness-based. I thought, first of all, it must be trust. But, one problem is that I can't be kind to myself. I was terrorizing myself. I put so much pressure on myself to get the job, to make some money, to be part of life as I understood it at the time. And it's absolutely, I beat myself up so much. It was really important for me that I started learning to be kind, and I did not know how agitated I was. I didn't know how to pause. And it was really important for me to fix that first. And then I realized, okay, the next step for that is trust. Right? I started trusting myself. I trusted you guys in AA, because I never met anybody, well, once, that tried to take advantage of the situation, from another alcoholic. And he was a con person. He tried to, in Shanghai, he tried to con a lot of people out of money. But nevertheless, a real alcoholic, it is just, trustworthy again. And he gave me everything back with that. I learned everything that's important for me in my life today is I got from Alcoholics Anonymous. And then, what is the next thing, right? And I really believe that's faith. That it doesn't matter what happens in your life. It is what it is. Stop bitching about it. Move on. What's the next right step? And it's always to stay on. It's not helping me sitting at home thinking, you put the hamster in the wheel in my head and start thinking about everything that's wrong in my life. There's nothing wrong in my life. It's not perfect. But I'm okay today to be me. With all my mistakes, with all my character defects, with all my faults that I have, right? Because there's a big difference today, but I get to that in a second. And then the next thing really is, the fourth thing is forgiveness. To forgive myself and others. And this is really how I got to, start liking people and loving people today. And that was really a big eye-opener for me. And it took me quite some time to really understand and learn that. I'm so selfish and self-centered. I heard last night in the meeting somebody talk about being narcissistic. Right? And why is that? Why is that? Right? And I really believe, and that's my opinion, of course, only, is that somewhere down the line something happened in my life, and I don't know if what happens with my parents that I talked about earlier, that sat with me somehow wrong. And that started off my soul sickness. So I started doing things against my better knowledge. I had absolutely no power over that. I didn't know what to do and how to do it, whatever it is. And this self-centeredness, when I encounter a situation that I don't know how to deal with, and I always thought it requires immediate action. But immediate action for me means reacting impulsively. Right? And I'm not in a position of neutrality. If I'm full of anger, resentment, and fear, I cannot make a proper decision. But then on the other hand, we have anger, resentment, fear on one hand, and on the other side, we have shame, embarrassment, and guilt. And this is the only 6 feelings I've been bouncing around in my life for so long. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, one to the other, one to the other. And, in that kind of state of anxiety, how am I supposed to make any proper decisions in my life? And I didn't know this because it was the only way I knew to live my life. Right? And my sponsor told me once, he said, Bernie, looking at your past and working through the steps, don't dodge the steps, is you did the best you could with what you had at the time. Wow, that took some weight off my shoulders. That doesn't wash me white, right? I had to take accountability, being accountable for what I did, and I made my amends, right? But that was, it's okay. So, this self-centeredness and this narcissistic behavior that I have was a layer of protection. It's like an umbrella that I opened up when something happened I didn't know how to deal with. Because I am scared that you take something away that I already have, and I don't get what I want. Right there in the big book. Didn't make sense to me the first 55 times I read that. Right? I didn't know. Right? So I'm laughing and I give my personal opinion here again. I just saw the first print, first draft of the new steps. Right? And to make it easy accessible for people. And I look at them and I think, that's just weird. You give me the big book, I read it a little bit, but I need a translator. I can't do it by myself. I need somebody to explain to me how the shit is meant. Sorry. I'm too retarded for this. I'm not that smart. Right? And it took me a long time. And as I mentioned before, over the course of the time, I made so many friends in AA, and I got so many different ways of looking at things. And today I'm much more in that position of neutrality that I can make good decisions. And if I get angry, resentment, or fearful, or I feel full of shame and guilt, and I'm an alcoholic. I wake up in the morning and I'm so full of fear and I don't know why. I think sometimes it's just because Bernie has the biggest to-do list in the world. And my wife isn't even up yet. So I start, I worry about what I have to do, what I have on my plate today, and suddenly I get so confused and so full doubtful of what I have to do, and I don't know how to put the pole into the ground and start my day. So I start, having a coffee and start thinking. That's dangerous for me. Because what I do is I go into procrastination. I paralyze myself with this behavior. But again, not into action. Sitting on the sofa watching Blacklist doesn't get you a job. There's nobody out there that will call you watching whatever, right? Or dodging the ball. And it doesn't really matter. It's just whatever the job is, I had to start again. Otherwise, I probably would have drunk again. It doesn't matter how many meetings I go to, it's in the action too. The last thing I want to talk about is about service. Right? I hear a lot of people say, let me put it this way. If it's not inconvenient, it's not service. Right? If you just say, I'd rather go out play golf, or you don't pick up the phone when your sponsee calls, or you put it to voicemail because you have to run your empire. Right? That's not service, in my opinion. And I tell that my sponsees. Here's the kicker, though. So about a couple of weeks ago, I'm sitting in my garden, smoking a cigar, being really pissed off about something. I can't even remember what it is. But I was so upset, and I was milking the shit out of my misery. Right? And You know what I mean? I said it earlier to somebody when I spoke to Luke. I said it's like the train goes through the station and doesn't stop at the train station. And now I'm in anger, I'm in resentment, and I have to kind of back the train back up into the station so I can find something and start filling with a big book or something. Or call my sponsor or start praying, right? Because I'm in anger, it's too late. It's really hard for me to push back. And as it goes, and this is higher power action for you, in my opinion, my phone starts ringing. And I have 6 sponsees calling me one after another. And you gotta make that shit up. You can't make that up. I think, Ryan, you caught me too, right? And I think, being of service, smart ass thing's a newcomer, and try to impress him with the power of my force. And I'm sitting there and I think, Bernie, you spoke to 5 or 6 sponsees right now. Maybe you should apply what you just told them to your own life from time to time a little bit more. And I think that's what Brett was saying earlier, right? That is why it's so important, because the Bernie you see standing here is not the Bernie that I see standing here. It's like an alter ego thing, right? And it's really funny how that works. But be open, let God in and let the higher power work with you. And it's so funny, the more I stay out, I just been on a conference in Florida. And I wanted to meet 2 people there. They're really hard to get to. There are always people around them, and I needed to get my sales pitch in there. And I said, how am I going to get to them? Right? So I get really upset again. And Tuesday morning, I go down to the breakfast table in Fort Lauderdale at the hotel, and I get my scrambled eggs, plenty, a few slices of bacon, and start digging in, and kind of, hamster is about to step into the wheel, and I look up, both of these people start sitting down on my table. I give up. I really give up. Higher power, you deal with this shit. I'm too stupid. I've proven over and over and over again in my life. Every time if Bernie tries to get that to the helm, it's just not as good as if I just let it happen. So I finish with this, and one of my friends spoke the other day, and he said what I just said about the power greater than ourselves is love, right? And our problem is our resistance to it, our resistance to love, right? And I want to read, and I don't have my phone here, but there's if you think about it a little bit, everything that causes of problem. You walk into the office in the morning or to work, and there's this, your favorite assholes walking in, and you don't really, what I mean? It doesn't matter what he does. He can give you $100. You still don't like him. Why doesn't he give me $200? Cheap, right? And how do I waste my time with this? It doesn't really matter. The most important thing that I have to learn here, one of the most important things that I had to learn is really that it doesn't really matter what you think about me and what I think about you. I love you. I don't have any bad intention. I'm not trying to take advantage. And thank you so much for letting me speak tonight.
Bernie, you get a capsule for that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're the make believe.